It began not with war, but with a cry for freedom. In the mid-17th century, 13 colonies along the Atlantic coast were growing restless under British rule. They paid heavy taxes, obeyed distant laws, and had no voice in the parliament that controlled them. Slowly, frustration turned to anger. People began to ask one powerful question: why should a king across the ocean decide their destiny? By 1765, that anger reached a breaking point. Britain passed the Stamp Act, forcing colonists to pay taxes on nearly everything: newspapers, documents, even playing cards. In protest, crowds filled the streets, shouting a phrase that would echo through history: "No taxation without representation." They demanded to be heard, not as subjects, but as free men. Then came tragedy. In 1770, British soldiers opened fire on unarmed colonists in what became known as the Boston Massacre. 5 people were killed, and their blood ignited a flame of resistance. The message was clear: freedom would not come without sacrifice. 3 years later, in 1773, patriots struck back. Disguised as Native Americans, they boarded British ships and dumped an entire cargo of tea into Boston Harbor. The Boston Tea Party was more than a protest. It was a declaration that America would no longer kneel. In response, Britain tightened its grip. Soldiers patrolled the streets, ports were closed, and punishment rained down on the colonies. But instead of fear, it created unity. In 1774, delegates from across the colonies met in Philadelphia for the First Continental Congress. For the first time, they stood together, speaking with one voice, a voice that demanded liberty. Then came the spark that lit the revolution. On April 19th, 1775, British troops clashed with colonial militias at Lexington and Concord. The first shots of the American Revolution echoed across the fields. Ordinary farmers, blacksmiths, and shopkeepers stood against one of the world's most powerful armies and refused to back down. As war spread, the dream of independence grew stronger. On July 4th, 1776, the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson. Its words shook the world. All men are created equal. With a stroke of the pen, the colonies declared themselves free, and the United States of America was born. But freedom had to be earned on the battlefield. The war was long and brutal. The Continental Army, led by George Washington, faced hunger, loss, and bitter winters. Yet they kept fighting, fueled by the belief that liberty was worth every hardship. In 1777, a major victory came at Saratoga, proving that the Americans could win. It inspired France to join their side, providing ships, soldiers, and hope. Together, they pushed back the British forces step by step. Finally, in 1781, after years of struggle, British General Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown, Virginia. The impossible had become reality. The colonies had defeated an empire. 2 years later, in 1783, the Treaty of Paris was signed. Britain officially recognized the United States as a free and independent nation. America's independence was not given, it was fought for, argued for, and believed into existence by people who refused to live without freedom. They were not perfect, but they were united by courage and vision. So when fireworks light the sky on the 4th of July, remember what they mean. They celebrate every voice that stood for liberty, every hand that fought for justice, and every heart that believed freedom was worth the fight. Because the story of America is not just about breaking away from a king, it's about proving that ordinary people can shape their own destiny. If you believe in the power of freedom and history's lessons, then like, subscribe, and stay tuned because the story of humanity is still being written right here on Ancient Secretics.